All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If other people join in, I will let them in from the waiting room. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Kansas State Alpha Zeta speaker event for the 2020 to 2021 school year. My name is Justin Brown. I am an agribusiness major at Kansas State, and I'm also the president of Kansas State Alpha Zeta. I'd like to share, first off, before we get started, I'd like to share with everyone kind of what Alpha Zeta is and what we do in our chapter. So Alpha Zeta is the oldest honorary professional society for students and industry professionals in the agriculture and natural resource fields. Alpha Zeta has chapters across 74 universities with alumni, including former secretaries of agriculture, a Nobel laureate, senators, congressional representatives, and other leaders throughout the ag industry. Members of Alpha Zeta work to promote agriculture and develop themselves as leaders following the 4 pillars of scholarship, leadership, character, and fellowship. In a normal year, K-State Alpha Zeta hosts a speaker event such as this one with various community service and social events throughout the year. We meet periodically throughout the school year to arrange these events and come together to share our similarities and differences across our variety of majors. Eligibility for Alpha Zeta requires sophomore standing with a GPA in the top 25% of your class and pursuing a degree in the College of Ag. With that being said, before the semester is over, we will be sending out emails to those eligible students, inviting them to join our chapter. Be on the lookout for one of these emails if you are at K-State and studying in the College of Ag. If anyone has any questions about Alpha Zeta, please feel free to message me individually on chat, or I will put my email in the chat. I will now turn it over to Linnea, our Vice President, to introduce Carly, our speaker.
Hello, thank you, Justin. Like he said, I am Linnea Rimmer, and I am the Vice President of Alpha Zeta. I am a senior here at K-State pursuing a degree in animal sciences with the bioscience biotechnology option. I would like to thank you all for tuning in to listen to tonight's talk about a former K-Stater who will discuss her adventures in food retail. I would like to begin tonight by introducing our guest speaker, Carly Whorton, co-owner of Cecil K's hometown market in Whorton, Kansas, is a graduate of Whorton High School and Kansas State University. Carly's motto is "Love Local," and she lives that through her involvement in the several boards she devotes her time to. Carly's question to you is, how can you love local in your own community and create a lasting impact? Please help us by giving a warm welcome to Carly Whorton.
Thank you so much. I am very excited to be here. Hello, everyone. I see some familiar faces or names. Very glad to have you all here this evening, and I hope everyone finds something of value in the story of my adventure, basically taking me through K-State and since I left, what I've been up to. I am going to share my screen. I have to use slides. They keep me on track. Okay. So as Linnea mentioned, I am Carly Whorton, and I am one of the owners of Cecil K's hometown market in Whorton. And more than the owner of Cecil K's, I'm an entrepreneur. I find my passion stoked in the starting of new things, especially things that are going to make a positive impact in the world. That's really where I find my own personal joy. And more as I move along in life, that's getting easier to find and easier to know what exactly am I supposed to do with that very broad intent of I want to start things that make a positive impact. So hopefully through tonight's talk, you see that I have gotten a little bit clearer on what it means to answer that call. I wonder if any of you can resonate with the feeling of, since I was small, I've basically known that I wanted to do something in this world that left it a better place than I found it. And that's a really broad intention. So when it came time to, actually get specific about what direction my life was going to go, I really didn't have a very specific idea. I just knew I can feel that I'm supposed to be doing something. And every step along the way, I tried my best to lean into that as best I could with the little bits of specific information that I had. And really, this is the question that keeps coming back up over and over and over again as I move forward is how do I define success? Like what's actually important to me? And there have been a lot of experiences along the way where I got what I thought was going to make me successful. And in getting to it, I realized that's not true success. That's not really what I want. So, where I stand today is for me doing something with my life and really just day to day, doing something that feels like me getting to live out the reason that I came here to be alive and to do what I came here to do. I want to do that every day, and that's my definition of success. So I love that definition for me personally because it leaves it really open-ended to where every day is an opportunity to make that happen because it could be anything at that point, anything that makes even one tiny positive ripple effect in the world is what I would define as my own personal success. So this is a question that I have, just to kind of paint a hypothetical picture here. Let's say you have this seed, and to grow it means to devote your life to it. That's the only way to grow the seed, but you don't know what the seed is going to yield. You don't know what kind of plant it's going to grow up into. You don't know if that plant bears fruit, and you have no idea how long any of that's going to take. Would you do it? Would you choose to devote your life to this seed that you have no idea what you're actually walking into? That's the question of an entrepreneur, I think. That's basically what entrepreneurship is if you're going to start something that's never existed before, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You have no idea if it'll be successful. When you're starting something new, there's no track record of other people having success. So it really is an exercise in faith and taking a leap of faith to try to start something even when there's no guarantees of what it is that you're actually walking into. So my roots are in FFA and 4-H. Very, very happily grew up in those two community and service-oriented organizations. This is the motto of FFA, which is learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, and living to serve. And especially that last line of living to serve has always stuck with me because that's basically what I feel like I'm here to do is be of service to find ways to make a positive difference in the world. And again, when you have a mission like that, when you have an objective like that, like literally the question is, okay, where do I even begin? How do I be of service? And I didn't have a really clear answer to that, really ever. And that's why I say feet first adventures, because if I had sat around waiting to find like specifically what's my goal and what am I trying to do, I probably wouldn't have ever done anything because I never really had that idea. It was just kind of one foot in front of the other, and the rest is history. And we'll talk all about all of that because everything is always working out. In my experience, basically what's meant to be will be. The way it's supposed to come together is how it comes together. When I was a senior in high school, I was planning to go to cosmetology school after high school and get a cosmetology degree and cut hair. That was my plan. And my FFA advisor, he was very, very certain and persistent and persuasive that I should run for Kansas FFA state office. At least take a shot at it. The process would be constructive through like leadership development, even if I didn't get elected. He said it would be good. So I hurried up and applied to K-State so that I could submit my application for FFA state office. I got into K-State. I did get elected to state office, and I ended up going to K-State instead of cosmetology school. So even that already, I feel like just kind of one step at a time. You fall into it however you're meant to. So a few years later, I graduated with my bachelor's in agricultural economics. And at that point, that was right after uh, the recession, the markets crashed, all of that, and the jobs were pretty slim pickings. And I was very lucky to get a USDA fellowship to stay at K-State and get my master's in agribusiness as part of a fellowship program that Dr. Vincent was working on. So, and meeting him was just very instrumental in my life. I feel like I credit him with teaching me how to think. He taught me how to look at things and ask questions and to separate myself from what it was that I was looking at to try to really seek the ultimate truth. Very, very valuable mentorship that I had with him. And so, again, all of that wasn't even really my plan. My plan was to cut hair. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, here I am with 2 degrees from K State. And now what am I going to do? So, that is really where I say I started practicing jumping off of cliffs. That's obviously a metaphor. I've never physically jumped off a cliff. I have gone skydiving, but that's a little different. But like, when you have big dreams, you really have to get used to taking those leaps to get to where it is that you want to go. And again, when you don't have a specific path in mind, it's like you really are leaping out of pure faith. When I moved to Dallas in June of 2011, so after grad school, um, I'd gone there twice, once to interview and once to apartment hunt, and then I moved there and I knew no one. And I just had it in my mind as I was like packing up in Manhattan and getting ready to move there. I just knew I'm going to show up and the office is going to be like cleaned out. Like it was all just a scam and I've uprooted my whole life and there's nothing. It was just a hoax. No, that didn't happen. But I was really, really nervous about what am I going to find when I uproot my whole self and move somewhere where I am completely by myself. Um, it worked out really well. It was an excellent decision to move to Dallas. I would say that first year of moving to Dallas, where I thought, this is where my life is finally going to begin. And I was so excited and I was going to make friends and I'm finally like in a real city. Like I was just over the moon. That first year in Dallas ended up, I would say, being probably the hardest year of my life. Like I can't even tell you how many times I wanted to quit and go home to where I knew people. I'm not super social by nature, so making friends proved to be more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And that first year was really, it was a lot of finding my limits because I got so lonely that I had no choice. I have to step outside my comfort zone. I forced myself to go to a K-State football watch party and the rest is history. I was just like sick of it. I was sick of being alone. So that was kind of how I got out of that first year funk was like eventually you just got to bite the bullet and do the thing that you're scared of. And for me, that was like go to a bar and hang out with people. So, we each walk our own path. But after that, the rest of the time in Dallas was exactly what I needed it to be. I felt like I found people that I resonated with for the friends I had in college and grad school were awesome. And eventually the family that I found in Dallas was life-changing to be able to meet people and get to where you really thought of them as your family, your extended family. So a few years into my time at ISN, they were awesome and paid for a PMP certification. So that's a project management professional certification. And the idea is that you know how to be a professional project manager. Um, and so they paid for that in the summer of 2016. And later on that year was probably the biggest cliff I've ever jumped off of. And that was resigning from ISN at the end of 2016. My goal was to, oh, not yet. My goal was to allow my business to unfold. So I had known from the time I was small that I have a purpose, I have a reason that I'm here, I have something I'm supposed to be doing. And I'd always known that I was going to be an entrepreneur and have probably not just one business, but lots of businesses. But I'd never really had an idea for a business. So I wasn't going to start a business because I don't know what to do. And when I quit ISN, it was like basically where I was, I can feel that my business is ready. My business is It's ready for me to work on it. It's going to unfold soon. I still have no idea what it is, but I can feel it. I can feel its readiness. And with that alone, I quit my job and was going to basically take a year off to live off my savings, do some traveling, and let my business unfold, let it come to me. Because so often in my past, that's exactly how my perfect path works out, is that other people bring it to me. Other people kind of push me in the right direction. So this is a piece that I have to include because it was the biggest tool that allowed me to actually quit my job and do this whole plan of I'm going to live off my savings for a year. And that was that my parents were very, very smart to teach all of us kids the value of saving your money. And I was very fortunate to be paid very well at ISN, and where a lot of my colleagues would show up the Monday after bonuses and they got a new watch and a new car and a new purse and some shoes and all of those things. I didn't. I put mine in my 401k. I put it in my savings account. I saved my money aggressively. And when I left ISN, I felt very comfortable living off of my savings for a year and seeing what would unfold for me if that's what I did. Um, the Kiss My Ass Fund, that's a name that somebody else told me later that that's what they called it. And I was like, yeah, that's basically what it is. Because if you're constantly spending all the money that you make and you're not saving any of it, you're really dependent on that next paycheck. And that's not a great place to be if eventually you find out that you really don't want to work at this job anymore. You want to switch jobs or careers, or you want to stop and open your own business. If you don't have a little bit of cash in the bank, that's going to be a lot harder to do. Not impossible, but a lot harder to do. So while you can, I would highly encourage anybody to build up that little cushion, that parachute that lets you jump off a cliff someday if you decide that's what you want to do. So that's basically what I did. I have no idea at this point what my business is going to be. I don't know where it's going to be. It could be anywhere. It could be with anyone. It could be doing anything. And yet I was ready to find out. I thought it would come and I was pretty sure. So I took a shot and quit my job and left my schedule open. The day I went home at the end of my last day at work at ISN, and I sat on my couch and I like pull up my calendar and I'm just scrolling and I'm like, my calendar's empty for like the next 50 years. Like there's just nothing on my calendar. It was such a weird feeling. Not as good as you would think. I feel like I went through a little bit what people go through when they retire, where you just have nothing but free time on your hands. It's not as sweet as it sounds. It's actually a little bit scary. So it was a process, and it took about 5 months. And the path is rarely a straight line. You know, you think like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to take this year off, and I'm gonna let my business come to me. But what am I actually going to do for a year, like while this business is unfolding and I have no way to make it happen any faster? So in that year, I traveled. That was really what I decided I wanted to do. I wanted to go on adventures. I wanted to see what life would bring me as options. And then I wanted to say yes. So it started just like a week after I quit. My friend Lauren was going to see her friend in Japan and wanted to know if I wanted to go with her. And yeah, I do. I do want to go with her. So a week later, we left and we went to Japan. I spent New Year's in Okinawa, and then we went to Thailand. And we overall, the trip was like 2.5 weeks long. The whole time I had plenty of time on my hands. So I did things like this. I drew, I sketched, and spent hours and hours and hours like perfecting the lines on Dobby's eyes. And that was like how I spent my days, which there were absolutely moments where I felt crazy. Like, you really quit your job so that you could draw Dobby and go to Thailand? Like, kind of. So far, that's really all it's turned into. Um, I also went to Australia and New Zealand, Alaska, Colorado, lots of different places. Um, and I had adventures, and I went lots of places, and I ate different foods, and I drank new beers, and it was a magical adventure. It was just one unfolding after the next. And like I said, it took about 5 months, and that's when I got a call. I got a random text message that said, "Hey, can I call you sometime? I have an idea I want to bounce off you." I said, "Okay, that's great. Let's talk." That's where I have to introduce this guy. This is Chad Bontrager, and he is my first cousin. So Chad's mom, Vicky, and my mom, Connie, are sisters. Um, so that picture in the bottom left, that's Chad. He's like 6, and me, I'm just a few days old in that picture. Um, so I've known Chad my whole life, and he wanted to talk to me because he had an idea. He has a whole string of different meat businesses, from processing to retail, just kind of all over the meat supply chain there. He also has cattle that he raises with his brothers, and farm ground and hay ground, on and on and on. Chad's a busy guy. So he had an idea about, he wants to have an old-fashioned meat counter in Whorton, Kansas. And as he went looking around for retail space to make that happen, he found the old Ron's IGA building, which had been a grocery store in the past and was way too big for just a meat counter. But if we wanted to take a shot at a full grocery that had the old-fashioned meat counter included, that building and that setup would be just about perfect. But here's the thing, Chad is a busy dude, and he's got no time to do any of that. And he's looking for a partner to basically take creative control and bring this vision to life. So Chad would not would not be involved in the planning, in the execution, in the opening, in the running. Like, that's what the partner is for. And Chad's lined up the financing. He's got this idea. He's got the real estate. He's going to manage the money. And this other person is going to have complete creative control and just get to, manage things how they see fit. And that sounded exactly like what I had been looking for. When I left Whorton when I was 17, I really, really thought I was never coming back here. And as it turns out, I moved back in July of 2017. So we spent 2.5 months while I still lived in Dallas. My lease just happened to be up in July of 2017. So I just moved when my lease was over. And those 2.5 months were really good because we did business planning. We dreamt what Cecil K's was going to be. And I mean, he sent me at the very beginning, he sent me like a paragraph of like a few services that it would have. And it's got fresh produce and high quality meats and, hot food, and we bake every day, and on and on and on. Online shopping was in that very first paragraph that he sent me. So I took those, few sentences of ideas and turned it into a full-fledged business plan and got the ball rolling on how are we actually going to do all of this. That's a huge undertaking. And so, yeah, that was the plan. We spent 2.5 months kind of getting our heads wrapped around what it was that we were really setting out to do. And then I moved to Kansas. And at that point, it is important to note, again, that was kind of jumping off a cliff all by itself because there was not funding secured at that point. It was eventually secured. Obviously, costs a lot of money to do a project like that. And so I, again, moved on faith that we would be able to get the funding secured. Of course, we will. This is all falling into place too easily for the funding not to come through. And we went for it. We signed the agreement on the building and we started doing what we could. And eventually, when the money came through, we all breathed a giant sigh of relief. So yeah, I was really glad that we had that time to do the business planning part. So meanwhile, Whorton as a community was in a very interesting place because when we took possession of the building, the second smaller grocery store had just closed a few months before that. And the other small grocery store had closed the year before that, all because the new Walmart, Whorton used to have like a regular Walmart that was kind of the biggest that it could be without being a super center. And then they announced plans to actually build a super center here in Whorton. So it's got a full grocery in it now. And that store opened July 2016. So this one is an interesting thought because, even now it's easy to get down on Walmart and to feel like there are competition and whatever else. But honestly, if you look at this timeline, it's very obvious that like if Walmart hadn't built the new store, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing because Ron's closed in anticipation of the supercenter coming. So, I mean, he was going along just fine. Like, he didn't get driven out of business. He knew that this community is too small to support both the Ron's and the Country Mart and a Walmart supercenter. We're not all going to make it. And so he closed his doors after 45 years of that store being there. And then Country Mart kind of did go out of business. Like, they tried to hang on as long as they could, and it didn't work out. The new store was so exciting and everybody flocked to Walmart. Country Mart didn't make it. And so now Whorton only has the Walmart. And that's when Cecil K's came onto the scene. And we heard a lot before we opened how much everybody hates Walmart. And again, it's hard for me to go there because I'm like, if they hadn't built that new store, I never would have got to do Cecil K's. So it kind of all works out how it's supposed to. Why the name Cecil K's? We get asked this question a lot, so I just thought we'll just answer it off the top. So these are Cecil and Lottie Kern. They are the great grandparents to myself and Chad. They're on the right. That's my mom with Cecil back in the 70s. That's his produce stand. He had a big garden, and we still get people coming into the store who had been to Cecil's garden and to his produce stand back in the day and tell us stories about what a great man he was and how cool that was. And there was one guy who I think it was like fourth grade, and the project was to interview your grandparent, and he didn't have any grandparents, so he interviewed Cecil, and he brought us the tape to that, and that was really cool. So yeah, he's been around. He grew up just south of Whorton, where we are, and so lots and lots and lots of people know him. There's also lots and lots and lots of Kerns around. Like, there's a ton of second and third and fourth cousins to Chad and I around this area. So when we say it's a family business, we really enjoyed getting to put a family name on it, a name that unites, like, not just Chad and I and our moms and that little branch of the family tree, but really like a bigger picture of the entire family that is all around. So this is kind of fun. When I very first met my AWG contacts, the main guy, he and I, we grew to really like each other, and we get along great now, and we have a wonderful relationship now. The very first time I met him, I walked up to him and someone introduced me to him, and I'm shaking his hand and looking up at him. He's a very tall individual. And he looks down at me, and his very first words out of his mouth to me, not even nice to meet you, hi, how are you? His very first words are, how did you wind up in charge of all of this? And, that's a fair question. That's a really honest, very direct question, but fair. And the short answer is, I don't know. I mean, these are the kinds of things that just unfolded around me, and here I am. I'm in charge. So let's get this going. And a couple hours later, he was looking at me very differently when he got to know me a little bit. Sometimes I'm different than you might first perceive me. But that was where AWG, they were very adamant that, like, we needed to have grocery expert experience hired into our staff, because I didn't have any grocery experience, Chad didn't have any grocery experience, and they just didn't know how we were going to do this store without it. And that's a story on a later slide. But I think one of my biggest talents, and Chad too, for that matter, is that we both are really good at learning stuff. So, like, we have confidence that we can learn. If we come up on something that we've never seen before, we trust that we'll be able to figure it out. So that confidence and that knowing that you can do it goes a long way. And I had to include one of my favorite quotes, like the one-armed alligator wrangler, I learn as I go. And isn't that the truth? When you get burned, you figure it out real quick how to do it differently so that you don't get burned again. So yeah, it's like anything else. Especially when it comes to entrepreneurship or anything where you're trying to start something new or step outside your comfort zone, the willingness to admit that, yeah, you're right, I am a grocery beginner, but I'm good at learning. You can teach me stuff. I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to absorb what you tell me, and we'll figure it out as we go. And we did. Literally 1 foot in front of the other. You don't have to know the whole big grand scheme of things to be able to put on the sign, future home, Cecil K's hometown market. That is such a fun story because that's what I did. You know, we took the keys. Inside, right inside the door, are the letters for the marquee sign. And I'm like, oh, how fun. We'll put future home, Cecil K's hometown market. At that point, we had not publicized at all uh, that we were like leasing the building, that we were planning this whole business. Like we hadn't told anybody yet. So putting it on the sign like that was really like coming out of the grocery closet and saying like, hey, look, this is what this is going to be. And that's all I did. I didn't mean anything else by it. And within a couple days, somebody had taken a picture of that. And there were all these different posts on Facebook and like tons and tons and tons of comments about like people like theorizing and saying, well, I heard such and such and blah, 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 small town things. And so I was like, okay, so I need to get our Facebook page up and running right now because we need to be the ones telling our story. And so that day, that it was like 2 days after I put this on the sign and somebody had taken the picture and started the whole thing, I made our Facebook page. And I think within a couple days, it had like 700 followers on it, just like no big deal, easy peasy. And so from 2 days after taking the keys to the building, everybody's like, when are you going to open? When are you going to open? Are you going to be opening soon? I hope it's soon because I really hate Walmart. We heard that like so many times over and over, and I get it. People were excited. I don't think they understood like what we were really walking into. Like the front of the building, you know, you look at that, you're like, yeah, that's not bad. The inside of the building, for one thing, it was completely vacant. So he had sold at auction all of his shelving, all of his refrigeration equipment, all of the equipment, period, the carts, everything. There was nothing inside the building except a lot of dust and some dead mice. And that was about it. That's what we inherited, and 8,000 square foot of tile on the floor, as you can see. So that was going to take some time. And when I said earlier that I was really glad that we had 2.5 months to dream Cecil K's in our minds before we actually like got the keys to the building, I had never seen inside the building until I get here, and like we're 2.5 months in, I've moved. I already came, and this is what I walked into, and it stunk and it was gross. And I was like, okay, all right, this is what we're doing. Um, I think if I don't know if I had seen this first, I don't know if I would have been as confident. But when I was just like leaping off the cliff, and I was like, well, whatever, like we'll just make it work. It worked out. So because it was completely vacant, we also got to design the grocery part of it however we wanted, including how many aisles were there going to be, how far apart do you want the aisles to be. Like we opted for one less aisle than what was in the building before so that we could have super wide aisles. We thought that that would be very nice for the shopping experience, and we get compliments all the time on that. And this is the kind of thing that like AWG, excuse me, Associated Wholesale Grocers, that they help with. I mean, they're a whole company of grocery expertise. So when it came time to plan the grocery offering, we were more than happy to take whatever help they were willing to offer us, like them making this map for us, where basically it's way too small for you guys to be able to see like what's written in these, but it's like this is salad dressing and this is the pickles and this is the canned veggies and this is canned fruit and this is applesauce, and like they went through and put it all together so that all the categories are represented. And they told us that they thought, you know, for our store that we should have 12 feet of chips and we should have 3 feet of ketchup and mustard and we should have 21 feet of cereal. And they're the ones who set all of that, and then we just tweaked it if there was something that we, you know, wanted something a little bit different. For the most part, we just let them do whatever they said would be a good fit because we don't know. We're going to have to just like start and then tweak it. And we did, you know, like they put all AWG's best sellers in our store. And we're a rural store, and AWG has some rural stores, some city stores. And so there were just some products that didn't fit with our community, and they might have been AWG's bestseller, but they didn't work in our store. So we discontinued those. We brought in new products for whatever the customers told us. And the mix of products has evolved a lot over the last 3 years. But as far as picking a starting point, AWG was more than helpful with coming up with what that looked like for us. And then it took 8 months. So we took the keys in July of 2017 and we opened February 28th of 2018. And 8 months really isn't completely true, because when we opened, for example, there were buckets hanging from the ceiling. Like we hooked them with chains because there was the roof wasn't completely finished, so the ceiling was still leaking. And so instead of let it drip on people's heads at the opening, which was what was going to happen, we tied buckets up to the ceiling. So those were still hanging inside when we opened the doors. It took a couple days before a customer was like, "So what's with the buckets up there?" And I'm like, "Well, we really wanted to open. We couldn't delay it at this point. The roof's not done. So yeah, those are catching the water. And yes, we do have to get up there and empty the buckets so that they don't overflow." So that was where we were when we opened. And again, you figure it out, you make the best of it. And we got creative, like I'm walking around and notice that there's drips coming down, like one lands on my head. I'm like, we cannot have the ceiling dripping on customers while they're trying to shop in our store for the first time. So it wasn't exactly finished, quote unquote, at 8 months. So it took a little bit longer than that, but we did open after 8 months of remodel. The front is, it didn't take a whole lot. A fresh coat of paint on the pillars. I really wanted to replace the pillars, but that was not in the budget. So we painted them instead, and put tin on the front, got our new sign. And then on the inside, this is probably like one of my most proud pictures that I've ever taken, because it shows the transformation that we made to the space. And probably my favorite story of the whole remodel was the ceiling that you see there is exactly the ceiling that I wanted. Again, we had to cut it off the list because it wasn't in the budget. And so we were going to keep the drop ceiling, which if you go back to this, so it had a drop ceiling in it. We were just going to replace all the tiles though, so they were at least not covered in dust and funky smelling. And so when we took all the old tiles down, this ceiling is up there already. And so we took the drop ceiling down and bam, there's our ceiling, and it's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, it was 8 months of painting and doing the floors, chipping off the tile, and all kinds of different things that brought it back to life, brought it back to a space that is very comfortable and aesthetically pleasing to be in and very functional. Yeah, very proud of that. So this part is super fun. Sometimes the wrong plan has to fall apart so the right plan can fall together. So when we were hiring, I told you earlier that AWG was very insistent that we find ourselves some grocery expertise to hire into our staff. And so we did. We're not completely rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious. We listened and we hired a gentleman named Mark. And all is well. We hired our entire staff. Everyone's accepted positions. We're fully staffed, and everybody's start date is a little bit different depending on what position they're coming to do. One of the first employee that was coming was Mark, and he was going to be my second in command. I was the store manager. He was going to be the assistant manager and run the meat department. And he was scheduled to start 6 weeks before we opened. And 2 days before he was supposed to start, he called me and said, basically, my current employer asked me to stay. Like, he had turned in 2 weeks' notice. He was doing his final 2 weeks. And the last day that he was at his old job, they called him in and said that they wanted to give him a raise and a company car. And so he was going to stay. He wasn't going to come and work for Cecil K's. He was going to stay at his current job. And as he was telling me that, it was very weird sensation, because half of me was freaking out because this can't be happening, because we're opening in 6 weeks and I need you to come because there's a whole list of things that I'm expecting you to do over the next 6 weeks. And the other half of me was like, this must be how it's meant to be. Everything is always working out. So this must be the right answer, that he's not coming. There must be a different option that's better suited for us. And there absolutely was. So now I get to introduce you to Jeff Hilliard. So Jeff was hired already at that point to be our grocery manager. So he would have been third in command at the store. And basically we bumped him up. You know, he still came and was still the grocery manager, but now he's my second in command. And so he went ahead and started 6 weeks before we opened. So he started like right at the beginning of January 2018. And since then, he has worked his way up through the ranks. He was grocery manager when he started with no prior grocery experience and got promoted to assistant manager and then store manager in training. And this past fall, he became the store manager. And just a couple months ago, we transitioned some shares of ownership to him. So he's now officially part owner of the store as well. Excellent, excellent person, Jeff Hilliard. And so that's, again, like, it's funny how things work out, because looking back now, I'm like, yeah, me, Mark, and Jeff was never, it wasn't going to be the best possible scenario. But Jeff and I, we took it, we ran with it, we made the best of it. And he has been a rock solid piece of the team for the last like 3+ years, coming up on 3.5 years now. So, and he's the store manager now. I mean, he sees himself there long term. He's not going anywhere, and we appreciate him very much. The other example of letting plans fall apart. So I would say like the most stressful piece of the project was around September, when we were trying to get the refrigeration stuff figured out, because ordering all of that refrigeration equipment was going to take several months to like get it all together with our specifications and ship it to us. And then once it's on site, then the guys have to hook it all up. So like a pretty real deadline. We originally wanted to open right after Thanksgiving. And in order to do that, we absolutely needed the refrigeration stuff to fall into place by the 1st of September. And the 1st of September, like that deadline, the actual day of the deadline came. And I was an anxious mess, like checking my email every 5 seconds, like, where is it? Like, we need that if we're going to open by Thanksgiving. And it just didn't come. Period. It's just not going to happen. You're just not going to open by Thanksgiving. Like, get over it, is basically what life told me. So we did. We got over it. We reset the opening date for February 28th. We pushed it out another few months and hoped like hell that we'd be able to meet that one. And we did, you know, like that was an interesting lesson in, again, the timing of things being the way that they're supposed to be. And I think in the long run, that was exactly what was meant to happen. January, February are two of the hardest months in the grocery industry, just because right after Thanksgiving and Christmas, people aren't ready to spend a ton of money on food January, February. They tend to cut back a little bit, downsize just a little bit. And then by the time you get back to Easter, the food budget has kind of bounced back. So we did end up opening February 28th, 2018. And since then, in the last over 3 years, we've been closed for 6 days. Thanksgiving and Christmas are the 2 days that we're closed. Otherwise, we're open 363 days a year. And even without the grocery experience that AWG so highly recommended to us, and we tried our best to implement, we figured it out. Like the one-armed alligator wrangler, we figured it out as we go. And that was literally what the first couple days of being opened was. It was like you're in the middle of the swamp and there's chomping alligators everywhere. We were so busy and there were so many things that weren't working, and it was so chaotic, and so many employees that have so many questions, and it was great. It was a whirlwind, and it was some of the most fun I've ever had. High pressure, long days, so cool to watch. Like the first morning, for example, we opened at 7 a.m. and there were about 20 people waiting outside at 7 a.m. to come into the grocery store and be the first customers of Cecil K's. And I might have cried at that. So once we got open, Love Local was not something that I had conceived of before, but once we got open and kind of the rush and the madness of redoing the store, remodeling the store, and planning everything and getting open, once we kind of settled in, Love Local is a hashtag that just like randomly popped into my mind. Like I was doing some of our Facebook posting and started using it and really loved it, and basically baked it into the Cecil K's brand after the fact, after we opened. And really, like, love local sounds like we're asking people to love us because we're a locally owned business. But in my mind, love local has always been so much more about loving the community than them loving us. That, like, the whole idea, I mean, I think it was even Gandhi that said, like, be the change that you want to see in the world. Like, if you want more love in the community that you live in, then be that and put it out there and invest that love into your community. So that was, yeah, I'm a starter. I like to start new things. I like to come up with new ideas. I like to plan stuff. So once we were open, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And turns out there's plenty that I could be doing. So right around the time of August, we'd been open for however long that is, 5 months or so at that point. And I'm looking down the center aisle, and all of a sudden I'm like, I want the store to be totally decked out for Christmas, like just huge, over the top, elaborate Christmas decorations. I could see it in my mind, these gigantic Christmas trees down the center aisle, and I wanted it. I was like instantly just all up on this idea of having these gigantic Christmas trees. And obviously, we're a brand new business. We're totally broke, like horribly broke. So there's no budget. There's less than no budget for big fancy Christmas decorations. So okay, time to get creative. So that is what gave birth to the Christmas tree decorating contest. And we ended up doing it 2 different years. The first year, which is this picture, we invited there are 4 local businesses that we invited to each put up a tree to benefit a local nonprofit of their choice. So we put up the prize money, which was basically credit to Cecil K's, like Cecil K's gift cards, and said, you put up the tree, people will vote with their Cecil K's receipts. So the total dollars, those correspond to votes, and whoever gets the most votes wins. And the winner, the tree that wins, that person's local nonprofit will get the Cecil K's gift cards. So with that, we got to showcase 4 local businesses, and these trees were up for, I think, about 6 weeks total. So we got to showcase 4 local businesses, and they got to showcase a local nonprofit that was important to them, and especially around the holidays. It was just such a win-win-win-win-win situation. Obviously, like, okay, so this second tree, this one right here, she sold out of several of the ornaments that she put on the tree because people saw them on the tree at Cecil K's and then went to her store to buy the ornament. And eventually she had to tell people, I don't have any more of those. So that was really cool. The tree that won was this one in the back, and that was put up by Whorton Dental. And their person that they benefited was a girl named Madison, and she had cystic fibrosis, and she ended up passing away right around the time of the contest, and her tree won, like, by a landslide. So, and all of the other trees, they donated their prize money to Madison's family. So we ended up giving her like $800 worth of gift cards for their family to come and buy groceries at the store. So that's how the first year ended up, and that was really cool. The second year, we worked with the 3 schools in the county. And they each had students who worked on designing and then putting up the tree, and then the prize money went back to the schools. So that was very cool as well. And then we didn't do it this last year, but I'm hoping to this coming year. Another one that came to us, so this was somebody else's idea. Somebody came to me and said that they'd seen a concept like this and they thought it would work at Cecil K's, but basically it's a donation tree. So JCMA is the Jackson County Ministerial Alliance, and they run the food pantry here in town. So the idea is that people can pick the ornament off the tree that they want, and when we scan that as part of their order, the computer basically keeps track of all of the donations that have been purchased. And then at the end of that process, we can round up all of the donated food and take it to the food pantry and give that to them. So this donation tree, we've benefited the food pantry several times. We've also benefited the library, and a few other organizations have taken their turn on the tree. And it's raised thousands of dollars in food donations for local organizations. And at this point, we really only put it up over Christmas. like, I think not this past year, but the year before that, the JCMA, they always do food boxes for qualifying residents of Jackson County. So there's like $100 maybe inside the food box, and it's lots of different things, staples and whatnot, but also food to prepare a holiday meal. And they had enough money to fill all the boxes and add some ground beef to the box. So that was like extra that they normally don't get to include. But because we had done the donation tree and raised thousands of dollars for them, they had enough funds to like even go above and beyond what they had originally wanted to do. So in that scenario, like both of these, the Christmas tree decorating contest and the donation tree, I mean, that is where I really had fun, was figuring out how can we craft these win-win-win solutions where, like, the thing about it is when somebody scans one of those ornaments, we're selling groceries. We sold the can of whatever it is, you know, even if that person's not going to take it home, we still sold it. And the people, especially at the holidays, they love to be generous. I mean, so many people, they'll just grab a couple ornaments every time they check out. So it's so easy. It makes it easy on the customer. We get to sell groceries. The food pantry gets a whole delivery of a big pile of food all at once. And we've even worked with them to like take their funds and say, okay, what are you short? You know, maybe somebody bought a can of peas, but you don't need peas, you need hamburger helper. So we work with them to try to fill the gaps that they have based on the funds that were donated there. So we set out to open a grocery store, a full service grocery store. And I thought that what we're going to do is sell food to the local community. And true, that is part of what we do. But there's also so many other things that wind up happening. And this one was probably the one that stands out the most. So I am by no means a night person. I'm a morning person. I like to get up early, and by 6 o'clock, like right now, it's basically my bedtime. So I'm winding down. This picture was taken at about 8:30, 8:45 at night. It was like 2 minutes before close, before 8 o'clock. And this big jolly fellow walks into my store, and he is having a rough minute, but he's in such a good attitude. He just like has this warm energy of him. And he's like, you know, somebody cut me off right in front of your store, and a bag of peat moss fell out of my truck. And those bags, they weigh like 2,200 pounds a piece. And do you have a forklift that I can borrow and to put it back up on my truck? And at that point, I'm pretty nervous because, like, the forklift, I mean, I'm sure he can run it, but that's our forklift. We use that to unload truck, and it's not cheap, and it's old and not in great condition. So I don't need anybody breaking it. We don't have the money to fix it. We're going to need it probably here very soon in a day or two to unload the next truck. So it was a risk. It was like risky to let him take our four-wheeler outside and use it to reload this bag onto his truck. And I ended up saying yes, because how could I not? I mean, it's 8 o'clock at night. Where is he going to get a forklift to put this back up there? He's trying to keep his schedule on and on and on. So I ended up letting him use our forklift. It took over an hour for them to get it back up there. So I'm also sitting there for an hour after we closed so that he can get this done. And at the end of it, he was just so grateful. And he doesn't even know the half of it, because, like, what if Cecil K's hadn't even reopened? He'd be sitting in the parking lot of an empty building that nobody was in there. You know, like these little things that we put ourselves out there thinking that we're doing one thing, and all of a sudden we become a cooperative component to something else. So the opportunity to make an impact is usually far greater than what you think you're setting out to do when you first start. So these ones, I might have cried over this as well. Happy tears, obviously. So twice in my Cecil K's career have I had a customer walk in and anonymously hand me hundreds of dollars to give away food to people who need it in our community. The first time the person brought me $400. The second time it was a different person, brought me $300. And all they want to remain anonymous. All they want is to hook people up with food who need it. And they don't know how to do that. So instead, they bring their cash to me and trust that I'm going to do it for them. And let me just say, like, that's such a weird sensation. Like, obviously, they can trust me. I'm very trustworthy. But still, like, the fact that they know that, the fact that they would leave that cash with a local business and say, here, help the community on my behalf, and then not expect anything in return. Um, there is so much good in this world. And I feel like running Cecil K's, that's kind of the front row seat that I got, was to these people who are so generous. So this one I included on purpose. So the guy brought $300 and he said, give away six $50 gift cards for me to people who need it in the community. And I'm like, okay, let me do that. I don't just have a list of people who need food assistance at my disposal. So what am I going to do? So I get on our Facebook and I post this graphic of 6 family giveaway. And this was like right before Christmas, I think, Christmas or Thanksgiving in the end of last year. And basically said, here's what's going on. We've had a very generous friend donate this money, and we need your help figuring out who are some families in our area that could really benefit from this money right now. And they'll get a Cecil K's gift card. And we asked people to send us a private message of anyone that they knew of that could benefit from this. So we didn't give away 6 gift cards. We gave away, I think it was about $1,200 worth of gift cards. We had a lot of names submitted, including one guy, and he was a single dad, is a single dad with kids, and he must be just like salt of the earth, one of the best people there is, because like 6 different people sent us his name. And so we gave him 6 of the $50 gift cards because he just obviously is an incredible human to have people speak up for him like that. And because we had so many people referred to us that they could use that money, we had a secondary anonymous donor who put in the rest of the money. So we ended up giving away about $1,200 worth of gift cards that Cecil K's didn't pay for, but we got to coordinate that effort of hooking up people who have the means to share and to bring that, bring that convenience to somebody else, and the people who really need it. And the community got to participate also. It was just such a cool experience. Again, might have shed some happy tears over that. This is a picture from our first birthday, and I love the idea that success is a journey, not a destination. When we set out to open Cecil K's, the goal was pretty clear, like we're opening a grocery store. But as we got into it and the unfolding of everything, obviously there's so much more in store than just selling groceries. First of all, my mom is the one on the far left. She ended up helping us in our bakery deli. So I had no idea that this was actually leading to me getting to work with my mom basically every day for 2 years, which was such a blessing. And then that's my grandma in the middle, and Chad's mom also, and she's our cake decorator. So again, get to work with her. So it's been such a fascinating, beautiful journey. Thinking that I was never coming back to Whorton and then have it work out like this, coming full circle, has been truly beautiful. So I ask you again, like, would you devote your life to growing a seed that you have no idea what it's going to yield and you don't know how long it's going to take? And I will also say that when you say you don't know what it will yield, the sky's the limit. Like, I thought we were getting into this even once I could see, oh, this is growing Cecil K's. Like, this seed is planting a grocery store. That's what this is. It's so much more than that. It's seriously so much more than that. And how long will it take? Well, it took 10 months to get open, and still here we are 4 years later, and I'm still getting benefits out of this experience. For one thing, I met one of my best friends the day that I moved back to Whorton. And she played such a critical part in getting the store open. I do not claim to be an interior designer by any stretch of the imagination. And she picked out our color palette. She took all of my sketches for our check stands and our department signs, our aisle signs, and she actually constructed them for me, brought them all to life. And that was such a beautiful connection that we made, which the story of how I even met her is a great one and a story for another day. But it's like that. Like, I didn't think that I was moving back to Kansas to make one of my new best friends. And yet that was part of the overall package of what was included in that unfolding. And then this one is also very fun. So I met someone at Cecil K's, met somebody at Cecil K's. She was shopping in the produce department and she liked my coffee cup and we got to talking, and she self-publishes her own journals. And so she taught me how to self-publish my own journals. And the artwork on the cover of my journals are some paintings that I made, which the person who taught me how to paint did so for free because I made a donation to her cause on behalf of Cecil K's. And so she wanted to thank me by inviting me to this art class. And so all of that, like, Cecil K's brought me my painting hobby. Cecil K's brought me the person that taught me how to do self-publishing. And now I have hundreds of journals published on Amazon. And I wrote this: when your life is your masterpiece, every day is an opportunity for success. Because when success is just making a positive impact every day, you go into it not really knowing what to expect, and oftentimes life can fully exceed your expectations. You think you're setting out on a path to accomplish a goal that you think you understand, and I would just, caution you to think that you know what you're really in for. Maybe it's way better than that. Maybe it's more than you could have ever dreamed of. So yeah, answer the call, whatever that is for you, whatever that feels like. And even if you don't know the end all be all of what that call is really asking for from you, one foot in front of the other, take steps towards it, whatever feels right in that moment for you. And yeah, that's about all we can ever do. Let it unfold. So thank you so much. That is all I have. And I would love to take questions. We have plenty of time. If there are any questions, you are all more than welcome to ask me. I think there's some stuff in the chat. Yep. Yeah.
I guess I'll start with a question, Carly. So you mentioned, Walmart is there in Whorton. Obviously they're a huge retailer for grocery. Did you ever worry much about their competition, or did you embrace the fact that some people, would rather shop local than go to Walmart?
Well, and they are our competition, obviously. Like, they sell groceries, we sell groceries, but at the same time, it's kind of apples and oranges to a certain extent, like exactly like what you said. There are some people who would rather shop in a smaller store. They'd rather shop at a place where they can park right outside the front door and walk in. And then, I mean, we have a lot of older clientele. So the small footprint of the store is literally offering something that Walmart doesn't offer. So in that sense, we set ourselves apart. The other piece is we try to carry as many specialty products as we can. So things that you couldn't get at Walmart, even if you wanted to. So we try to not just automatically have the same product set as they do, so we can differentiate ourselves there. And I think the most important piece, and this is really at the heart of the Cecil K's brand from day one, is the quality of the customer service that we provide. When people walk in, we smile at them, we welcome them. Um, before I moved back to Whorton, when I was just dreaming of Cecil K's, I could feel it, and it felt like walking into your grandma's house. It smelled good. It smelled like cinnamon rolls and fried chicken, and people smiled at you and they were glad that you were there. And it doesn't feel like that to walk into Walmart, yeah, it's just a different experience. And so that's what we went with. We sank our confidence into, we are offering something different. Yes, Walmart has lower prices, but that's not the only thing. It is a motivating factor, more so than we expected it to be, and that required us to be agile and adapt as we went. So, for example, we've brought in dollar items in basically every category. So there are dollar options all over our store that pretty much, for the most part, between those options and our sale flyers, so sale prices that change every week, we can stay pretty cost competitive with Walmart as far as the pricing that they do. We can hit that, not all the time, but often on a rotating basis. So yeah, I think that, and building the relationships with people over time. So like I said, like the people who come in and we know who they are. We know what they got when they were here last time. We know their grandkids just started baseball. And like that's worth a lot, I think, to the right people, you know. And we still get people over 3 years after we opened who come in and they're looking around, they're like, yeah, this is my first time in. I'm like, oh, are you not from around here? No, I am. I live here. And like they've never been inside our store. So all the time, there's still new customers. And at this point, we are seeing a steady, pretty much a repeatable growth rate every year as far as sales go. So I think, you know, we're not losing any customers and we're gaining customers all the time. And I think probably also the proportion of what they're buying at our store versus Walmart is increasing as well. When we launched our sale flyer, I think the basket size got quite a bit bigger. People liked that we could be a little bit more cost competitive, but at a certain point, you also just really appreciate like being treated like a human when you go in to spend your money, your hard-earned money. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So Carly, it's Janelle from the land of Kansas.
Yeah.
So what is the next big thing for Cecil K's? Like you've been there now for 3 years. I'm sure you have a whole lot of dreams and stuff. So what's your next thing that you're publicly at least going to say you're working on?
So for one, online shopping just dropped. Like at the end of last week, we just launched online shopping for customers. You can go to cecilk.com and get to our online store. We started curbside pickup and delivery during COVID and established those processes and gained efficiencies in them, optimized them so that there were no errors and all of that. And now launching online shopping is awesome. Those orders are starting to come in, so that's really good. And the next idea is to see what we can leverage that technology for. I think bigger picture, there are food deserts all over Kansas and the US in general, and opportunities for small grocery stores in lots of different places. So that's something that we're always open to. We get contacted sometimes by other people who are, you know, they have opportunities that they want us to look at. And we are open to seeing how Cecil K's could grow into more, maybe not necessarily a chain, but a hub of support for other more localized, smaller grocery stores to try to combat some of those food desert locations. So that's like bigger picture. Cecil K's in Whorton needs to gain just a little bit more momentum before we'll be ready to move into that phase. But yeah, it would be nice to take the model and especially go somewhere where there's not a Walmart in town. That would be really nice for revenue wise. So
Carly, I have a comment and a question.
sure.
First off, my favorite old movie, the students can't relate to it, but It's a Wonderful Life. And I think you can relate, not that your age, but the fact, what if, you know, the gist of what A Wonderful Life was, is what if this guy hadn't been born? So I like when you say, what if Cecil K's hadn't been born?
Yeah.
Bless you for what you're doing, I think. And I think it's probably, I know it's tied to age, but the older you get, you appreciate service and loyalty much more than price. You know, price isn't the driving factor, it's the relationship that you're building there. So bless you for doing that. My question is about the meat side. I'm from animal science guy, you'd expect that, right, Carl? So do you rely on Chad's expertise there? And from a standpoint of volume, how do you, that would be, I think, one of the things that would be harder to compete with Walmart in terms of, do you offer branded products or are you tied with Chad and his business on Yoder meats?
So our meat department is kind of some of all of that. So we have some specialty products from Yoder. and Bowser Meat Processing out of Meriden. They make some snack sticks and jerky strips and stuff like that. And then a bunch of stuff like the specialty stuff, summer sausage and snack sticks and all that kind of stuff comes from Yoder. And then we still do box beef from AWG. And so all of our fresh meat that all the like clods and loins and everything that we cut down into steaks and grind into ground beef, that all comes from AWG. And that's been a learning curve for all of us. I think Chad's expertise in the meat department is without question very necessary and very helpful. But even then, like when we started running the sale flyer, when you advertise $1.99 ground beef, how much are you going to sell? And the fact that you have to order that 3 weeks in advance, and you can't order it mid-sale. So if you got 3 cases and those are gone on the first day and you only have 2 more cases coming next truck, you just way under ordered. And that is what it is. And you just learn and make a note for next time to like, maybe we try 6 cases on the first truck and hope that that's not way too much. So that's been kind of the tricky part, is as we're growing, and especially on the sale items, like, you know, how do you plan when you have to order it so far in advance? That's, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. That's probably the hardest part, but we've gotten a lot better at it, at trying to dial it in. So we're not like grossly under on our inventory, and we're not sitting there with a bunch afterwards to where, okay, guess what? The sale's still on. We're going to give it another week and try to get rid of all of this. But yeah, sometimes it could go either way. You just never know.
Thank you for what you're doing. Next time I'm in Whorton, I'll definitely stop in. That's a
Awesome.
great,
Yeah,
great
come see
story.
it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Dwayne says, has Cecil K's motivated, inspired the launch of other local businesses in and around Whorton? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Dwayne. I can say there are a lot of small businesses in Whorton and new ones opening all the time. Being on the chamber board, I get to see quite a bit of that with the ribbon cuttings and stuff. Also, the square, if you're ever in Whorton, is lovely. Very nice downtown district. And so Whorton in general is just, it's a beautiful little Mayberry of a town. And I mean, as far as having to come back to your hometown to open your first business, I feel like a person could do a lot worse. So yeah, in general, Whorton's a really nice area. And then Emily says, Carly, your curbside pickup during COVID made a very positive impact on my grandparents' life. I'm grateful for what you provide to the community. COVID was, I mean, wow. Yeah, it was a whirlwind of adaptation, like on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, especially that first week when things really got real. And AWG was sending out emails like every 5 seconds of, now this is limited and this is out of stock and we don't know when this is coming back and these prices are about to go up, and on and on and on. It was very crazy. And so yeah, curbside pickup became a thing like almost immediately. We also did a lot of delivery routes, like up to 90 miles away. We delivered groceries. I was taking groceries to Overland Park at one point. Because the city grocery stores were being hit so much harder that we had more product than they did. And there were a couple people ordering from us. Yeah, COVID, I feel like we could do a whole separate talk just on that experience, those few months. Pretty crazy. Any other questions? Seems pretty good.
Any other questions for Carly? Well, if there's no more questions, I guess, for Carly, then thank you very much, Carly, for coming. We very much appreciate it. We were supposed to have you last year, and obviously that didn't happen because everything got canceled. So very grateful that you could come back again this year, or come back this year. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. In a normal year, this would be in person, and some of you may remember a couple of years ago we had Justin Knopf from the Salina area. He came and talked to us about his operation. So yeah, look forward to our event next year. Keep your eyes peeled out for that, obviously, when that comes. Everyone who is a student at K-State, be on the lookout for an email, about Alpha Zeta. We'd really like to grow our chapter and make it, make it big so we can do some more events, especially in person when we have that next year. So does anyone, Linnea or anyone else in Alpha Zeta have anything that they'd like to share?
Nope, just again, thank you so much for speaking. That was an amazing talk.
Thank you. I anytime I get to talk about Cecil K's is a good time. It's easily one of the things in my life that I'm most proud of, and very glad to be on this side of it. It was quite a bit of work, but totally worth it, and hopefully something that'll stand in the Whorton community for many, many years to come. So thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciated it. Have a great rest of your day.
I'd also like to mention, Alpha Zeta, we're doing a fundraiser for a Yeti cooler. If anyone is interested, just direct message me or something. I'll stay here on the meeting a little bit later. We're raffling off a Yeti cooler. So just want to put that plug out there. So if there's nothing, I think we're good.
Yeah, looks good. Thanks, guys. This was great. Really appreciated you having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your night. We'll see you later.
Yeah, you too. I hope the recording works. I think it will.
Surely, yeah, if you need any help with it, just